and we're talking about 4 steps to claim more calm and peace without putting yourself last. And I think this is going to be incredibly helpful, especially for support team members that really feel like they have to do it all and getting out of that sacrificial lamb mode, if you will.
I'm so tired of micromanaging. How do I train, manage, and lead? I can't find time to be visionary. Head down in the weeds.
All right. I am so excited for today. And we're talking about 4 steps to claim more calm and peace without putting yourself last. And I think this is going to be incredibly helpful, especially for support team members that really feel like they have to do it all and getting out of that sacrificial lamb mode, if you will. So I'm excited to have Shari Biery here today. Many of you will recognize she's been with us before, teaching, going the back end of the academy and calming the chaos. I would highly recommend that you go back and listen to that presentation. Gosh, Shari, how long ago was that? 3 years ago?
I
Two
think it
years
was
ago?
actually a year and a half or something
Oh,
like that. I know I was poking around in there too. It's great.
yeah.
Awesome.
So I am so excited. I want you to tell everyone about your upcoming book as well. And
Mhm.
let's hit it. Let's kick it off. Shari and I met in a mastermind group, in about 3 years ago, the Thought Leaders Academy. We sat down she was at a joint table, and immediately we hit it off. We are speaking the same language. And since then, I am so grateful to have you as one of my accountability coaches. As you all hear me say over and over and over again, I've had accountability coach since 1997. I have several of them actually. If you do not have one and you're in the law firm admin boot camp, raise your hand, reach out, let us know. My recommendation is you get an accountability coach with some of your fellow colleagues and members within this group to support you. It is an absolute game changer, especially not just about getting work done, as Shari's always telling me about. Where's your being list? What are you doing? It's not just about your doing list, it's about your being list too, to make certain that we can stay out of burnout and overwhelm. Does it ever go away? No, not at all. But let's lock arms with it and invite it in, because it's such an indicator. When you feel your frustration, when you feel your overwhelm, you feel your stress raising, that is a barometer to tell you ding, 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 power of the pause that I talk about all the time. Stop. As you always hear me say, the time to change a tire is not when you're going 90 miles down the highway. And so Shari's going to hit it hard for us today. And I'm so excited to have you, Shari. Thank you.
Thank you. It's so good to be with all of you. And thank you, Molly, for the opportunity to come in and talk about something I'm so passionate about. And yeah, that whole piece of like accountability and being able to be the person you were created to be, we get in the hustle mode. So today we're going to talk about the 4 steps, like Molly said, to claim more calm and peace without putting yourself last. And I'll share a little bit more about my story in just a little bit and how I ended up what I'm doing now. But I want to give you a disclaimer here that this content is a presentation. It's not to be considered medical advice for any reason. And you should always seek medical attention or mental health services if you are in need of that. So really talking to your medical provider when you feel that burnout, that overwhelm, talking about that is a huge piece to our health and wellness. So today I really want to go into basically 3 points here. Discover how to identify burnout and ways to shift out of overwhelm. And then I'm going to talk to you about showing you how simple this can be when we start prioritizing what truly matters in your life. We're going to do an exercise there. And so if you have a pen and a paper close by, you're going to need it then. And I'll let you know when that's coming up. And then we're going to talk about some easy habits to talk about protecting your energy and listening to your body and giving yourself what you need in those moments. So I like to share this picture of a rocking chair, me sitting in it, because I was not always one to sit in the chair and sit still. I was a respiratory therapist, and then my husband and I met in high school. I followed him. I became a military spouse for 20 years. I was a volunteer who couldn't say no. I worked in multiple different industries in not only healthcare, I ended up in the federal government. I worked as an admin assistant, a financial analyst. I ended up at a special projects coordinator at a nonprofit. And I got to the point where when my husband retired from the military, I was at my highest level of stress. And I didn't see a lot of things in the time of what was going on. But I knew I needed something different. I needed to change. It took me years to realize the consequences of this chronic low-level stress that I was feeling and my relentless denial of rest. And it not only was physical, it was emotional. And it was during that, all of those demanding years caught up with me. And as my stress was building too, I was in total denial. I was not seeing it. I kept thinking if I could just keep handling the things that kept being thrown at me. And I certainly didn't want to appear weak. I put in an incredible amount of expectations on myself. And then when I hit that wall of exhaustion near my husband's retirement, I had no choice but to start paying attention to my body, because in my own body, I was having stress signals in my body. I had been to multiple doctors trying to figure out what this feeling of marbles in my throat was, and I couldn't get it. They tried every test. They gave me every drug, trying to figure it out, and nothing would change. I was having night sweats. I was in perimenopause and didn't even realize it. Nobody talked to me about it. But my stress was just adding fuel onto that fire. And so when my husband retired, they did a beautiful ceremony called reading this poem, Old Glory, pass the flag from one person to another. He comes over to me, hands me the American flags, gives me a kiss and says, "It's your turn." He knew in his heart that he could see the things that I wasn't seeing either. And just a side note, he's a physician. So he saw a lot of things and could understand the pressure. And when I go into this, I want to talk about first of those steps of recognizing your exhaustion triggers. I want you to recognize this before you get to the point where you are completely burnt out. And I want to read a very short sentence here from the World Health Organization, because it talks about burnout. And it talks specifically about burnout in the workplace. Burnout is a syndrome that results from feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's jobs, or feeling of negativism related to one's job, and reduced professional efficacy. Now, while I can appreciate this is a definition of burnout in our workplace, what if we looked at this from a perspective of our lives and looking at replacing the word jobs in there with life and professional with personal? Burnout is really a syndrome here that results from feelings of that energy depletion. We're exhausted. We're increased in our mental distance from our lives. And it sounds exactly like where I was. And if you are feeling this way, or you're noticing these things that are happening in your body, I don't want you to ignore it. I want you to pay attention to it. And I know that life is things are being thrown at us so fast. And this is where our exhaustion can really come in. I want to really kind of go into how your body sees stress. And we have high levels of, these moments of stress like when we exercise or when we get excited about something, that is actually good stress. We can go through that event that we go through, and our body comes back down to a homeostasis where this is normal. But then we have these chronic levels of stress. This chronic level of stress runs rampant through our society right now. It's go faster, go harder. Work hours are extended. We're being stimulated all the time by our notifications on our phone. Our Apple Watches are buzzing all the time. They're stimulating our nervous system. And your body sees this stress all the same. Just like if you have those events, we always joke around and say the tiger chasing us, and then we go back to normal. But this is our everyday lives. And so how is stress showing up in your body? These are just a few of the symptoms. And like me, I wasn't paying attention. I was thinking, I've really got something physically wrong with myself. But when in fact, it was my stress. So upset stomach, high blood pressure, back pain, lack of focus, headaches, trouble sleeping, maybe forgetfulness, that brain fog. You have weight issues. You're putting on weight. You're not able to keep weight. You're fatigued. I give some other ones: overeating, undereating, irritability. It all shows up as stress. So when we can recognize just where we're at, that's a big piece of stepping back and saying, looking at my body, what's going on? What are the signals? So my question to you is, are you getting any signals that are like, maybe this has something to do with the way I'm running through my life? Being able to have those periods of slowing down and things kind of go back to normal, or you feel better, that's a sign there. So recognize the exhaustion triggers. What is exhausting you in your life shows up physically, but also mentally too. And that could be this heavy, I call it the heavy invisible load that we carry that we don't always give ourselves credit for. So this step 2 I want to walk you through here is advocating for your boundaries. And a way we're going to do this is really talking about how can we sometimes, advocating for our boundaries there's a number of topics we could discuss, but the one I want to really help you with today is this boundary of what you can continue to take on and what you can get rid of, what you can release. And so in my upcoming book that's going to be released, I have one of these strategies. It's filled with strategies. And one of them is I call it the brain dump and priority practice. And so if you want to grab your pen and paper, there are 2 steps here we're going to do. And I'm going to give you some time, like 3 minutes, to think about this for a minute, but then write everything you have spinning through your brain right now. And I just want to preface this by saying, this is what I call, and if you've heard this term before, the invisible load. Men and women both carry it, but I'll be honest, I think women carry this a lot more. If you are the CEO of your household, if you are the one who schedules all the car maintenance, if you're the one who is planning the vacations, if you're the ones that's logging into your kids' grades at school, checking it, if you are the one who is coordinating all the things that you're not necessarily giving yourself credit for. And I'm not like credit as in, hey, I'm doing more work than you, but let's just appreciate all the things that you are doing that could be contributing to this mind spin. If you've ever laid down at night and you can't get your brain to shut off, this is a very good exercise to do. So I'm going to give you like 3 minutes here. I'm going to time you. And what I'd like you to do is just free flow. In this practice, what you do is you just let everything rip, more or less, that is running around in your brain. So we want to go ahead and just let everything, all those things like, I got to buy a birthday card for my mom, I got to buy this present, or I need to go to the groceries, Write it all down. And if you have thoughts too, like, I can't do this, this is so hard, write those out there too. And then don't worry about how the next step I'll walk you through is more or less how we're going to categorize this. So I'll give you about 2 to 3 minutes. Ready, go. Okay, you can always come back to this and add more. I want to give you this just kind of exercise as we go through this. Now, you can look at your piece of paper here and maybe you have a few things. It takes a little while sometimes to get going. If you're in the right flow of this, it can really dump a lot of things out. But the one thing I want you to do first is take a big deep breath, because that's a lot, right? So already recognizing in your body how just getting some of that out can feel good. The second thing here, and this is where we go, how do we go from this? I have one version of this that I have snow. So in Denver, I know it's snowing right now. I'm down in Pensacola, Florida, near the sand. So I use sand as the beach. And so we might have this big dump truck of stuff that we're carrying around in our head. How do we get it into the small bucket? But the thing I want you to realize is we're going to go into the next step. What I like to say is prioritize and release it. These are the 4 buckets. And so I want to give you a little time, and I want you to go through this first as number 1. So number 1, beside the items that you listed on your paper there, what is your immediate focus? Now, these are the things that only you can do, and they require your immediate attention. So it is Thursday right now. Let's just say for the next 4 days, 5 days, I usually do a brain dump on my weekend, or anytime I start to feel overwhelmed or I can't sleep at night, do this brain dump. And then I say, okay, what has to get done in the next 2 days, 3 days, this week? So go through your list here and write a number 1 beside those items. Can we have a mute? Oops. Thank you. All right. So some of those you might be like, okay, if it's an if or kind of an iffy thing, just let it go. You can always come back to number 1. Now, number 2 is I can delegate or hire this. These are those tasks that someone else can handle. And delegating these tasks can really relieve a lot of pressure, a lot of stress that you feel you have to carry. And the thing I want to just to preface here too, I always have to ask myself in this bucket, is it something that I am choosing to hold on to? I think I have to have control over it. Or is it really something that I'm thinking that way, but I know I'm having a hard time delegating or hiring it, but I know it could be on somebody else? That's still a 2, because you can go through the how a little bit further into that. So looking at your list, what gets to be delegated or hired? Number 2, put a 2 beside that.
Even if you are not the hiring manager and you do not make the decisions, but it will impact the bottom line and your overall goals that we need to hire or delegate. So don't get stuck on the how. Just really focus on that, and don't get in the weeds around the strategy. And I don't make those decisions. It's on the boss, what have you. Just identification, and treat it like you're doing a true analysis if it's for the business part of it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, being able to say that. This is where we can get into a lot of, I don't know, I just do it. It's easier if I do it. And we need to get out of those habits of that. All right. And then bucket 3 is future tasks. Determine these tasks can wait until next week or next month based on their urgency. So you may go through and write a 3 beside those, but then you get to decide it a little bit further to say, is this next week or is this next month? And being able to say, that's a next month task, and going ahead and identifying that. You can categorize that based on urgency. So number 3 there. And then number 4 is, I like to call this not mine to carry, or not my business. And these are the tasks or commitments that really don't belong on your list. This is an exercise to recognize or remove any of these things that they have nothing to do with you, or maybe they did at one time and you've grown in either your position that you're in, or if it's personal. I had to start looking at this years ago, of like, I'm volunteering for something my kid's not even involved in anymore. This isn't even mine anymore. That was easy to look at it and say, not mine to carry. The other way I like to say this is not my monkeys, not my circus kind of thing. So bucket 4, write a 4 beside any of those. Okay, so the reason I had you do this exercise, for a couple of reasons, because this puts boundaries around our time, our focus, our energy. It starts to establish some clear boundaries. Now, there's a couple of different things you can kind of a couple of tips I want to give you with this, is defining your limits in this way. It helps you really clearly see where your personal and your professional limits are. It's be able to be really effective in seeing where your boundaries are on that. The next thing is, communication is a big key. I know Molly is a great advocate for communicating and encourages everyone she works with is learning to communicate this. Communicating your boundaries openly and assertively, sharing your needs and your limitations with others is actually okay, whether it's in the workplace and certainly in social circles or personal relationships. And then that practice of saying no. I know how difficult it is. I call it, in my book, I write about it, and I call it, I had a helium hand. I couldn't say no to anything. And I realized the helium hand got me in trouble. That's why I ended up in the place that I did, where I was burnout and it was affecting my health. So saying no is not a rejection, but a conscious choice to protect your time and energy. Those are those boundaries. So I hope that exercise was helpful. You can always go back and do it. It's a tool I pull out of my toolbox quite often. And especially if you get into that place of feeling very overwhelmed and like you need help advocating for yourself, it's a good reminder practice. And the one thing I want to ask you too is, sense in your body when you take a deep breath now, and it might take you a little bit, but after you do this exercise, how different your body feels. You feel like your body senses this stress when we carry all this invisible load. One particular client I had, she said she has this mind spin and she could not sleep very well. And she said, we walked through the brain dump practice, and she said, I'm going to do it tonight. And she said, last night I had such trouble. I'm going to do it tonight before I go to bed, an hour before I go to bed. She did it. She said it was the best night of sleep she'd had in so long. And she contributed to it too, getting that heavy load off with it. So there's a lot more than we give credit to. All right. The step 3 here in this is create your simple yes habits. These yes habits is really developing these mindful awareness of what your body needs and allowing you to respond to yourself with self-compassion, love, care, and, like I mentioned, having positive stress in your life, taking on exciting projects, engaging in challenging workouts, embarking on a new adventure. Those are all, they can enhance our resilience and overall well-being. It's on that flip side of that constant low level stress. So there are a couple things that I want to give you 3 things to think about when we talk about this piece of getting good rest, and sleep is a big thing. Rest and sleep are 2 different things. I like to say rest is one of those that you can sprinkle through your day. It's, can I take a walk outside or just go outside and sit for lunch? Can I take my shoes off and, well, maybe not in the snow, but in the sand or in the grass? I'll take 5 minutes and go walk around just in between calls. It may be getting some movement in. You have 20 minutes between your next meeting and you're like, you know what? I could get some steps in. I call that a snack size approach to movement. I can get 1,000 steps in that time. So being able to do that, looking at our wellness and our well-being, it's not just food and movement that affects how we feel and our weight gain or weight loss. It's not just food and movement. It's how you're resting through your day. It's how you are moving your body. Not only that, but your social circles that you spend time with. The time that you can say, I'm putting a boundary around work and home, and this is what I'm doing now, and I'm going to transition. We have so many people who are working remotely now, and this is a common thing that I hear is, I don't know how to shut it off between work and home, and I'm having a hard time transitioning because I'll work for a while and then I go cook dinner and then I go back to work. Sometimes those are strong conversations to have, really powerful conversations. We all need that rest time because rest really does a lot for us. It renews us, it rejuvenates us. We call it, a rest is a money generating activity. I call it a possibility generating activity. You think about it, and during the day, in the morning, you feel really hopeful and going, and anything's possible. By the end of the day, your body's tired, depleted. If you haven't given yourself some rest, you're thinking it's not going to work. Something's, you start to do that catastrophizing a lot more. So creating those simple yes habits are, where can you take those few minutes in your day and just take a time out? I call it the gas and the brakes on your nervous system. The gas is your stress, or you got to go, you got to do things at work. And then the brake is, let me pause, let me give myself a break. 5-10 minutes makes it, I'm telling you, it will make all the difference. And then the final thing is this mindset piece of fuel yourself. I call it the fuel yourself first practice. We are taught in our society that we have to, as women especially, we have to take care of everybody else but ourselves. And I say we have to stop that. We have to take care of ourselves first. And I want you to do this in 3 ways. This is what I help clients do. Is 1, we start to rethink rest. Challenge the belief that rest is either an all or nothing concept, or instead of viewing it as a luxury, in something reserved for extended periods of time, it's reframe your idea around what is rest. Small, rejuvenating moments will contribute to your well-being. And then number 2 is what I mentioned, that snack size goal. So rather than aiming for these long stretches of exercise or rest, if that is, set some small achievable goals for short breaks through your day. This could be, like I mentioned, as brief as 5 minutes of deep breathing, a quick stretch, a quick walk outside, moments of mindfulness. And I'm going to share with you here, I have a 5-minute stress release and reset that you can pick up, or you can scan here in just a minute. I'll share the QR code. But then the last thing is scheduling your breaks. Scheduling, if you are having a difficult time and give to everybody else and then have no time to give to yourself, this is about becoming very thoughtful and mindful and aware of where is your time going and how can you, whether it's scheduling a reminder on your watch or your calendar to say, it's time to take a break, or this is my exercise time. This is my quiet time in the morning to enjoy a cup of coffee or breakfast. Like carving that out is key. So this 5-minute stress release and reset, I put in here the QR code that you can go to. This is on my website as well. It's down pretty much towards the bottom there, or it's sprinkled through my website. But 5-minute stress release and reset, I just really encourage you. It could be as simple as taking 5 minutes that makes all the difference. You think about the gas tank analogy of like, if you run yourself out on empty, you can't go. You just can't do it. But if you're topping your tank off through the day, little by little, it actually makes a difference. So that's that. And so those 4 pieces that we talked about, recognizing your exhaustion triggers, where in your day are you feeling really depleted, and how can you advocate for your boundaries? Looking at, is it time? Is it focus? Is it energy? Doing that brain dump, and then prioritizing what's most important and releasing the pressure and the expectation that you have to do it all, and not necessarily getting stuck with the how. The how will come. And then step 3 is creating your simple yes habits, those micro little snack size things that can help fuel yourself. And then that step 4 practice is really getting a mindset fix of, I get to fuel myself first. Because when we do, we show up so much better for everyone else around us. So I can take some questions. I'll go through just these couple of minutes here just to let you know. If you are, like Molly had said, you're looking for some accountability, you're looking for support in your health and wellness, this is where I'm a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. This is what I do every day with advocating for women to take better care of themselves. And being able to do that, this is my 4-step really belief process in my It's Your Turn method. It's creating a vision, stepping into your own purpose, creating the path that's right for you. This is about getting back to who are you, who were you created to be, and what do you want? That being, we're so ingrained in getting our worthiness from our doing that it's about being first. And then we work into our beliefs of gaining awareness of our worthiness by building belief and trust in ourselves. In the book, It's Your Turn, I write about the 7 most common beliefs that slow women down. I don't have time. I don't have money. I need permission. There's 7 of them that I wrote about. Those are the 3 top ones. And just a little side note, the thing was with myself, like my husband saying, it's your turn, I didn't need his permission. I realized I needed to give myself permission to rest, to be who I wanted to be, and nourish myself in the way that my body was asking for. So that the last 2 pieces here is nourishing. We talk about listening to your body to give yourself the nourishment you need. And we go in deeper into the foods that give you energy, foods that take it away, your sleep, creating a morning rhythm, creating a power down hour at the end of the day so that you can sleep, and really looking at your stress and the people around you, the energy, and then activating that mindset of saying yes to yourself each day. These are a couple of my clients who had big wins, different opportunity. Every week provides an opportunity for growth, clarity for what I truly wanted in my life, and I couldn't attain it because I didn't, without first knowing what I desired. And that was how we uncovered for Victoria the path of what she really wanted. So here's another QR code. This goes into my link tree. So if you click on, or if you scan this one, same thing as the last one, but scan it and you will see a couple of options there, different ways to connect with me. But the first three are the 5-minute stress release and reset, my website where you can go and get more information. And then the third one is a Discover You call. So if you are looking for answers, you don't know the how of how can I start taking better care of myself? Where do I even start? I'd love to invite you to have a free call here, a conversation. It really is just a conversation. And I always say it's not a salesy one. If it feels like something you're looking for and I have something that can help support you, I'm happy to share that with you. But for the most part, this is what it means about taking your turn. And so as I go back to kind of reflecting back on that day when John handed me the American flag and said, it's your turn, how that has really transformed my life is that mindset of that I get to say yes to myself. I get to be the woman I was created to be, and I don't have to feel guilty about it. Because what has happened is because I became the better version of myself, and now my clients are, and they're telling me how it changes their lives. It's changing their relationships with their family, their friends, and just a richer life full of more calm, peace, and joy. So I will take any questions. Should I stop sharing the screen here? There.
Thoughts, comments, questions, where you're like, oh, Shari, this is all great, but how do I implement it? You do have no idea what my list looks like.
Yeah. Anybody out there feel that way? It's taking the first step, right? Is acknowledging it and going, where do we go from here, and the boundaries. So I
you
love
have
this.
the list. Where do you go from here? Especially if I would venture to guess a big portion on this list, you have to go to your boss and have a conversation about. Maybe it is delegation, maybe it is hiring, maybe it is what have you. What thoughts, comments, drive-by coaching do you have for that?
I think, the one conversation that I've had multiple times with people who have a big, heavy load is going with their employer and saying, can I have a really honest conversation with you here? Here's my list. I want to know, what is the priority here? I want to know if your priority matches up with what you want me to execute first. We all have, like, this is a society issue, really, as far as I'm concerned, a cultural issue of go, go, go. You can just do more, keep piling more on. And at some point in time, we have to be able to stand up for ourselves and say, I'm a great worker, I'm a good employee, and I'm feeling this way. And I know the way I can walk through this is being able to have a conversation. This is healthy boundaries for everyone. And I know it is a very difficult thing to talk about. And you may or may not be able to, is your employer receptive to this? But the fact of the matter is when we are burnt out, we're less productive. We have more absenteeism. We have this culture that's toxic. We dread going to work. We are feeling like we have a problem retaining people because they're like, I just can't take one more thing on. So I'll start going and looking for something else.
And I would recommend sharing your personal stuff too. So often I will get on calls with people and like, I'm stressed, I'm burned out, what have you. I had a call this morning with somebody that said, my my employer wants me to work with you. My attorney wants me to work with you because they said that some of my communication is passive aggressive. And I'm like, okay, that we can dissect that terminology, passive aggressive, but let's get to the root cause. And when we did, the attorney sharing all these projects they want to get done and in their weekly meetings, in email communication, Slack channels, what have you, like, this isn't passive aggressive. This is actually you not using your voice. You're not
Mm,
sharing. You're not project managing. You're not clarifying and verifying. You're not being realistic about, do we have the resources? Do we have, so it's an opportunity to step up as a leader and what have you. So often people won't share everything that they have on their
mhm,
plate. They're like, okay, this is everything that I have at home as well. And then I'm working nights and weekends, and the attorney has no idea. So
mhm,
I share the whole list. And so
mhm,
often I hear people, well, I see how stressed my attorney is. And maybe your attorney will say, you want to see my list? You Yes, actually I do. This is a great opportunity for us to do a mini workshop. So
mhm,
so go the coach, so go the coachee. So if you're afraid to go to your attorney, or maybe you have in the past and you've been met with, you need to manage your time better. You need to, all of these business hacks that I hear over and over and over again, it's your opportunity to power the pause, to stop and say, we can't all operate like this. And yes, I
mhm,
know we don't have any money to hire. Yes, I know we're not reaching goal. Yes, 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 yes. And how about we improve the culture here and we really start looking at the whole scope of the picture of what we all have personally, professionally? This is quite honestly when people started taking Fridays off. And, I have many firms that close their office on Fridays and
mhm,
they're still reaching, exceeding goal and what
mhm,
have you. But none of us are going to create more time. We've all
mhm,
tried. We've
mhm,
all tried. And we're not getting 9 days in a week, and we definitely are not getting, and even
mhm,
if we did, we're just gonna subscribe to the hustle culture
mhm.
more.
Yeah.
And, people say, I want my people to be happy. All these buzzword, family first, work-life balance, what have you. But if your attorney is, or any of your leadership, dumping projects, having conversations about projects, and we're feeling the niggle, we're feeling the stress or what have you, it's time to stop. So we can talk about balance to burnout. We can talk about these 4 steps and what have you, but it starts with you of
Mhm,
having the conversation, not in between meetings, not putting it on a list. And it is that you have to have dedicated white space and time to say, let's start really taking this seriously because you're never going to be able to grow and scale if you continue doing what you've always done.
mhm. It's so true. I mean, you can't make the car go faster by adding more weight to it, right? It's like you're just gonna slow down, and it is one of those things. And I know this goes back. I think underlying all of this is those beliefs that are underneath all of it, that we're afraid to talk about some of these things with our employers, or because we might appear weak, or it doesn't, we could get fired, whatever it is, kind of thing. And, I've heard that phrase of quiet quitting now, is when employees are like, I just can't do it. I just can't do one more thing. So I'm just going to phase, and maybe that one doesn't, get taken care of. And that's just the way it is, kind of thing. And nobody wants that kind of, attitude in an environment. But we do have to have these healthy discussions of what is realistic here, because I heard a stat one time, like your ideas that your creativity at work, like you expect it to be at work, it actually is like only like 20% or less than 20% of your ideas come at work. They come in the space when you're like out for a walk thinking about some,
Mm,
like you're clearing your head. So I really have seen cultures in workplaces that have adopted this. We're making wellness or well-being. I like well-being. I think wellness sometimes gets overused.
agreed.
So I think it is a holistic approach to well-being, because you become more efficient. and you become a better person. People love being around you because your energy is what it is. Your customers can pick up on this thing. You know, when
Absolutely.
you walk into an office, you can, I feel it. I know an office staff that's completely stressed versus one that's like, oh, here we go, you know, pins and needles, that kind of thing. So I love that you're bringing all of this to your group and being able to share this with everybody.
Money is energy. And one of the rules in this program is never suffer in silence. And I think so. Shari and I had this conversation last week
Mhm.
that we believe, or I'll just use myself, and I'm working hard and I worked very hard for years with my coach on this, that my value is tied to my production.
Mhm.
And so often, if we name, because if you have the courage, and I always say it takes 20 seconds of insane courage to just, the truth will set you free. Use your voice. So take your list and going to your team. I would do it as a team approach. It's a great, people are always like, we need team building exercises. Maybe we should go throw axes or what have you. Screw the axe throwing is my, this is the greatest team building because money is energy. 1,000%. I will hear all the time for attorneys, oh, what we did these Facebook ads to a workshop. We're not closing the room. Nobody's booking appointments. We're not getting any sales out of this webinar, what have you. I'm like, let me see your calendar and your world walking up to when you got on stage and what have
Mhm.
you. You're bringing the exhaustion on stage. You
Mhm.
are subconsciously like, oh my gosh, if 10 of these people hired us, we're screwed because we can't service them. And I know there's really hard things that all of us are
Mhm.
going through. You all see your attorney and they don't have a path and plan. They're subscribing to all these organizations and these coaches that they're hiring, and they're like 10x this, you know, double this, and hustle, 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 and giving them all these strategies to implement. But they come back and you're like, who's going to implement this? We are all
Mhm.
burned out. And
Mhm.
burnout is real. Burnout is not
Mhm.
complaining. Burnout
Mhm.
is not being a player. I
Mhm.
cannot say enough about that. So talk to us. Anyone, thoughts, comments, feedback? What are you guys taking away from this? We want to hear from you. Who wants to share? How's your list? Is your list crushing you? I did this exercise in my mastermind yesterday, and one of my power partners came in. She's like, I'm just so sick of my team. You know, they're delegating up to me. I can't get the entrepreneurial freedom. This. I'm like, stop. Let's put pen to paper and let's write it. And afterwards, I'm like, how much time would it take for if you were to do all that? And she's like, about 8 hours. I'm like, your list is not overwhelming. So when you put pen to paper, I'm like, it is not your team's fault. You're just not being clear and you're not delegating and training them. And so that is the biggest piece. And when you look at it, like, are you kidding me? Your list is a dream. It's 8 hours. Now, what do you need to do with that to have the conversations with people?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the chat, let's see. I've been using the brain dump before bed for years, off and on, and it's super helpful. That's
Yeah.
amazing. What do you do with your list after you have? Same with me. I have sticky notes everywhere. I have lists. I love lists. I love pen and paper. I will never get away from it. I have it in my car at a stoplight, what have you. So often people are leaning on technology, smartphones, and the notes sections and Slack. I really want to encourage you not to do that.
Mhm.
I really want to encourage you to go back to old school and go back to basics and put pen to paper
Yeah. Yeah.
and
One of the ways,
looking at it. I carry
yeah.
it around with me.
Mhm. And I actually take, like, those things on my list, I'll put those, these are the 3 priorities for me on my calendar. I have a paper
Me
calendar
too.
and I have an electric calendar. I think what we're sharing is, like, what strategy works best for you. And there is something to be said with writing it out and seeing it on paper. sometimes for me, I know if I have an electronic list with my VA and my creative director, and I'm like, okay, they've got it. It's shared. It's, so everybody knows where we're at. And she's keeping me accountable on stuff, which is great. But at the same time, I'm like, I've got to have it written so I know this is my focus.
I've always been pen to paper. It's the only way I can get through my workflow. Absolutely. But I would also add to that, it's not just about work. It is not just about work. It is when you think of something, oh my gosh, the dog needs to go to the groomer. Oh, next week my family's coming. I have to clean the house, or going back to delegation. What would it cost you to bring in a house cleaner? $150, $120, whatever it might be. But it's not just your workflow and your work when you're feeling the things. For me, a big thing for me was that my kids would text me during the day, can I have money for blah, blah, blah? Did you make my doctor's appointment? That's a rule in my family. You are not allowed to text me during the work. Your failure to plan is not my crisis. It's taking me off my game. It's adding to my list. Like I'm getting it from my attorney or what have you. And now I'm getting this. Find the hacks and the rules that you can throughout the time. But this is not just about work, guys. I really want you, when you're going through your day and you're adding your list and something comes up for you and you're feeling the chest pressure, write it down and look at it and take time in your calendar. I talk a lot about self-management meetings and writing. And I'm going to say this again for anyone who joined after. If you do not have an accountability coach in this program, reach out and find an accountability coach. Shari and I, we have a Voxer channel. Every single week on Mondays, we put, here's my priorities for the week. When we're feeling stressed out, we lean on each other through that. Then we do celebrations and wins at the end of the day and hold each other accountable. Like, no, time out. Like there's no celebration in there at all. You just dumped all the things that you didn't get to this week. Start over. What are the home runs that you hit? And so I cannot say enough. I keep my list on a journalist style notepad and throw the old one away when I make a new one. I love that, Robin. I did the same thing. Like I put time on my calendar and I go through. Last night I went through all my journals. Shari and I do a 2-hour high productivity performance sprint once a month. Again, there's a training in the back end of the academy for that. Highly recommend you do that with your coworkers, with your attorney, with yourself, or what have you. And I had all my notes. When did we do ours? 2 weeks ago? I went through all of my notes and I put it all in my calendar. And it was really great because when I went back to it after 2 weeks, I was like, crap, I didn't even get that in my calendar. And I already did 2 of these things that are done. The subconscious mind, when you put it in there. But incorporate more into your personal life and make it a habit. Yeah, Lizette, thank you for that comment. Like, it is not just about work because money is energy. You're responsible. We all know, we see that one thing. We think of that one thing. We're like, how in the world am I going to get this done?
Yeah. And just to add a point, I had a client who was like, oh, I don't know. I've got this big list. We did this brain dump list. And I said, okay, who in your life can you delegate some of this? She's like, well, I'm not really sure, I guess. My husband and son. And she was really reluctant. And we role played like, okay, what could a conversation like this look like? And she was like, the best time to bring it up would be dinner. And she did it from a place of, rather than say, can you guys do any of these? It was, can you all look at this list with me? Can you think of anything else that needs to be on this list? Because right now I just got a huge load dumped on me at work because someone left the job and I'm picking up more responsibilities. I can't get all of this done on my own. Is there anything on this list that you all would be happy to take? And she said it shocked her because they like took 5 things off her list and they were like house honeydew kind of stuff, but it was stuff that she was holding on to thinking she had to do it. So it really having that step of the conversation too, of being able to do it in your personal life is huge.
And
So
at work, there's
it
interns,
so
there's
works.
internship, apprenticeship programs. I just found out about one here, which is a project management school for
Mhm.
seniors that are in DECA and Young Entrepreneurs Society, what have you. I'm scheduled an interview and I'm going to have a project manager for free. That is project manager and trainer going to come be an intern in my business. I'm super excited. My personal life is just a bunch of alarms and reminders that are set to alert me through the day. Not sure that's going to do me any
We
justice.
I have another exercise we can walk through, Liza. If you want to book a Discover You call, we can talk about that and just have a conversation on that. That's really getting clear about, like, let's get this stuff off that doesn't need to be off. Where are the alarms and everything set that this and realize, like, once we set it, we don't just set it and forget it. We have to revisit these things that when we put these things in our life of doing it. So I dropped my website link in here. The 5-minute stress release and reset is on there. There's also up in the right-hand corner is a Discover You call. Any of you are welcome to book that. Like I mentioned, that's just a conversation to have of where do we go from here? I'm happy to support you on that.
Yes. And I'm going to say one thing. You guys are sick of me saying this, but no alarms, no alerts. Schedule an appointment in your calendar because it'd be incredibly, even if you're working from home. I know some people have, they're working from home. They have small children, they have babies, what have you, need to pick up the kids from daycare and transition for 15 minutes, whatever it might be. Shari, thank you so much
You are welcome.
for
It's
your
such
time again. And I'll put the link for you could go listen to Shari's session from about 2 years ago as well. Next, we are going to kick off into how to replace the attorney in the signing meeting. Thank you so much for being
all
here
right.
today, Shari.
Thank you for the
Reach
opportunity.
out, get the link, get the everything, pull it out because I'm going to stop the recording. So get that out. We've reached the end of yet another episode of the Hire and Empower with Molly McGrath podcast, where dream teams of entrepreneurs in an entrepreneur's world really do come true. Listen, whether you're a business owner, employee, executive, or hiring manager, we fully understand hiring, onboarding, and leadership is expensive, exhausting, often overwhelming, and absolutely time-consuming for the already taxed professional. Well, we have your back on all fronts. For 25 years and counting, we have transformed over 4,000 law firm teams into the most efficient, resourceful, and profitable asset of your business. Check out our Smart Hire solution, our employee leadership program, and the 66-day law firm turnaround at hiringandempowering.com.